Walking into a movie with high expectations is a dangerous game. It's a bit like online dating. You've been looking forward to it for a long time, but everything you've seen has been very carefully selected. So once it finally happens, you might just end up in there full of disappointment and hoping that at the very least, it will finish fast. So, despite my best efforts, I could not be excited for Joker Folie because the first one is one of my favorite movies of all time. But even as a fan, I still had a few questions. First of all, why make a sequel? Joker definitely worked as a standalone movie, and it was in fact intended as a standalone movie. So, although I would have wanted more, I was also okay with it ending on a high note. So, assuming that it is not some greedy Hollywood thing, considering that it made $1 billion as an R-rated movie, I wanted to know if the sequel was going to serve the story and the characters, that there was a point for its existence, or basically, if it was necessary. The second question I had was why a musical? I'm sure that a lot of people, including me, were a little bit surprised by this choice, but I have so much confidence in Todd Phillips and pretty much everyone involved in this project that I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. And then of course, is it any good? So I got my ticket for the very first showing in the entire country, and since this is my first time reviewing a movie, I even brought in my notebook with me just to make sure that I write down every thought I had as it was fresh in my head. I was actually writing down in the dark without looking at the page while paying attention to the screen, so I'd be surprised if I can make anything out of it, but let's go through it and talk about the movie. First thing you get is a Warner Bros. Looney Tunes inspired cartoon that recaps the previous movie a little bit and foreshadows this one, and it feels like something that could be playing on TV in Gotham at the time period that this movie takes place in. So it definitely sets the tone very nicely from the get-go. We then spend the first 15 to 20 minutes with Joker in prison going through his everyday life, and interestingly enough, he does not say a single word until way into the opening of the movie. And because of that, I personally got even more invested in it because in a way, we're experiencing it through his point of view. I have to say, the first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie are as perfect as they could possibly be. I'm talking about some of the most beautiful cinematography I've seen in a while, the directing, the acting, the pacing, the flow of the shots. There is this one moment in which he gets locked up into his prison cell and then the lights turn off around him and then he lights up a cigarette, and just the rhythm of the editing of that moment is so perfect. And then back to the cinematography, the use of shadows, the use of reflections, the camera movement. Everything is so beautiful. Even the color grading deserves its own shout out because it is just wonderful to look at. In general, this movie has quite a few of what I would call iconic shots, or basically those few shots that stand out so much that they end up becoming a part of pop culture, something that people reference and something that other movies end up recreating and parodying for decades to come. So despite the fact that he's not even talking in the beginning, I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone that Joaquin Phoenix is delivering an acting masterclass. He lives and breathes that character, the mannerisms, the micro expressions, the body language, even the body itself. This time the shoulder blades are even scarier. So it goes without saying that he's fantastic in this. But what I really wanted to see is where he was going to take this character now, if he was going to develop it in any way, or if he was going to do anything that is different this time. So to answer that question, I did feel that he evolved the character, and that is what basically the movie is about. It's about this internal struggle of whether he's Joker or Arthur, or if those two things are the same. We then get introduced to Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, and it is a more grounded version of the character than what we're used to, with different origin story and motivations. But as someone who believes that movies are their own thing, regardless if they're based on a source material or not, I don't really have a problem with creative freedoms like that as long as it's good. Now, I think that Lady Gaga had a big challenge with this one. I'm pretty sure that even more seasoned actors would be quite intimidated by having to share a screen with Joaquin Phoenix and keep up with him as a scene partner, so all things considered, I think she did a pretty good job. And while we're on acting, I want to highlight the actor playing Gary. He absolutely kills it, and he owns the screen time he has. Seriously, such a good performance. A little bit about the storyline. Joker is on a highly publicized trial in which he's facing the death penalty unless they can prove that he has a multiple personality disorder, and Joker, who did all the things from the first movie, is not the same as Arthur in this one. And even Arthur himself is not sure if that's the case or not. The movie is once again a big character study, and it is focusing heavily on that internal battle that Arthur is having. One of my favorite moments was in the courthouse when he was talking to Gary and he was being Joker, but at the same time, at one particular moment, he almost cracked and you could see under the mask that he was being Arthur, but then he tried to suppress it, and just constantly seeing him trying to figure out who he is was just really enticing to watch. He has achieved a celebrity status, and there's even an in-universe movie about the whole thing, and a lot of it feels like a commentary on how we romanticize true crime, and there's a lot of parallels between everything that's happening in Gotham and, well, real life. You're almost rooting for him to figure it out, and there were a few times in which he asked Harley Quinn if she was real or if what was happening was real, because it was either too good to be true or he knew that he was prone to having those fantasies about life. So this constant search for who he is ends up being the main driver of the movie. Now let's get to the whole musical thing. When the first song started, I wasn't sure if it was going to be one of those musicals in which the people around him can hear him sing and can join him in an elaborate dance choreography, or if the song was a representation of his internal monologue and what he's thinking and feeling, and I'm happy to report it's the second one. The songs were not bad, but they were not that great either, and that was actually on purpose. Lady Gaga said in an interview that she had to unlearn certain vocal techniques because Harley Quinn would not be as good as a professionally trained musician, Joaquin Phoenix improvised a lot, and Todd Phillips actively encouraged him to try and sound more raw and natural. It is also worth noting that they actually sang during the taping, rather than pre-recording the songs and then lip-syncing them on set, and that in itself deserves a lot of credit, but it also adds a certain element of authenticity to it. Up until this point, I've only associated musicals with animated movies and generally happy vibes, so the juxtaposition of doing a musical with such a dark tone and a grounded movie was at the very least interesting and a creative risk that I appreciated. Now, would the movie be just as good without the songs? Yes. Maybe even a little bit better. But did they ruin it? No. The way the story ends is very conclusive, which I really like, and at the very end of it, something happens to the background, out of focus, and if what I think happened, it's pretty nuts and honestly very smart. When it comes to it being a sequel, it honestly does not feel like Joker 2, but more like Joker 1.5, and whether that's a good thing or not depends on how you like your sequels, but to me, it felt like an extension of the first movie. So is it actually a good movie? Yes. Is it as good as Joker? No, but pretty close. To me, the beginning of this one reaches new heights, but the second part struggles a little bit to keep up with the very high bar it has for itself. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments below and let's have a discussion. And until then, check out this video, which YouTube really thinks you're going to like. And who am I to disagree with YouTube?